All right. Welcome, everyone, to the first meeting of the Education Subcommittee of Ways and Means. We have 4 bills on our agenda, 3 that we may vote on, and 1 that, if we have time, we'll go ahead and discuss a little bit. And so I'm going to start right away with the first bill. It's House Bill 197. It's Delegate Pasteur's bill regarding restorative practice in schools. I will say, and then I'll let Alistair, who is our policy analyst, add any details that I have overlooked, which I do sometimes do. Rarely, but sometimes. This is the bill. This bill is in the same form, not that it was introduced last year, but in the same form that we passed it on third reader last year. There is an amendment, but it is corrective in nature. If nobody objects, if we get to the bill vote, I will just move it with the amendment that just corrects a little language. Alistair, is that accurate? Almost heard you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. It is totally accurate.
Okay, I want to make sure. Do you feel any need to describe the corrective language, or is it really so technical that
It's very technical. If people want, I can, but
okay? I think we'll let it go. I will just say that the bill deals with the sponsors asked me to emphasize that this bill is not about disciplining students, although it will involve better discipline in the schools in terms of the way students behave. But it is a larger matter. It is mostly permissive and not doesn't set up any requirements. And with that, I'll be willing to take discussion or a motion on the bill.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
I second.
Oh, I was going to ask a question. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So first of all, thank you so much, Chair Eversole, for bringing up this Black Caucus priority legislation. Very excited. I just wanted to make sure I understood the form of the bill that we're looking at, and as it was introduced, is how it passed last year.
Correct. It's
the
third reader that we passed to the Senate.
Okay.
Which then summarily stared at it for us.
Got it. I do want to move the amendments, but I see Delegate Miller has her hands up, so I will wait.
Well, and I think because of the technical nature, unless someone objects in the group, we will just move the bill with the amendment when the time comes, just so that the language is corrected. You don't have to trust me, but you can trust Alistair on this. I'm sure of it. Delegate Miller, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that this wouldn't impact. Frederick County is already doing this, as you heard during the bill hearing, at some of our schools very well. And I want to make sure, like, putting this into place wouldn't take away from the local control or the good work that they've already done. That would be my concern. Sometimes when we do it from a statewide framework, sometimes it impacts what is being done locally in that regard. And they're already doing it very well.
That's kind of a bill technical language question, so I'm going to leave that to Alistair to comment on for us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so what the bill does is requires MSDE to adopt a comprehensive plan for the establishment of restorative practice schools. And then if a county chooses to establish one, they'll have to follow that guidance. It depends on exactly what the plan that the State Department of Education will come up with, whether that would be in conflict with any currently existing restorative practice schools. But I would imagine that it probably would not be, and that they would probably consult with those schools in establishing their plan in the first place and try to make it as universal as possible. But the schools will have to follow the state plan.
So it leaves the nature of the plan to the State Department of Education, and I have two of the 4 people who are on Ed Sub represent Frederick County. So I'm sure you can get Frederick County to weigh in with you what they're doing and talk to the State Department about making sure that it doesn't impede the good work they're doing. I would hope they would be responsive. All right. With that, Delegate Wu, you wanted to do something before. You want to do it now?
Yes, I move as amended.
He moves the bills amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, you're all on camera, so you can just raise your hand if you are in favor of this bill being brought to committee with a favorable report. And we are unanimous. Okay, thank you all very much. All right, next bill we're going to take up is House Bill 324, anti-bias training. We passed an anti-bias training bill last year. which was required teachers to get anti-bias training. It's actually a half-day training and is peer-to-peer, but this is not exactly the same, but it was felt that people who are serving on school boards should probably have the perspective that's provided by this training. This bill is brought to us by Delegate Corman and co-sponsored by Chair Atterbury. And I think, Alistair, we have no amendments to this bill. I believe we're going to pass this bill. This bill, by the way, not that it really matters to us, but it matters a little bit. The Senate has passed their version of this clean and is sending it over to us. So since we think it's a good idea, and there's really anything we add would be kind of technical and ticky-tack, we think that requiring this training would be adequate. So we're not offering any amendments at this time. Delegate Fair, I see your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just want to clarify the anti-bias training already exists in our code. We're just simply stating that it is the intention that the school board member must complete this training within 1 4-year term. Well,
Sometime during their term. I mean, they could be untrained for a few years in this one, you know.
But that's all this bill is doing. It's just requiring them to
Right.
do this training once in their 4-year term. I move
That's correct.
favorable, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Accurate. Okay, we
Second.
got a favorable and a second on it already. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of a favorable report on this bill, raise your hands, please. And we have all hands in the air. Thank you all very much. We will bring that to committee with a favorable report. We are going to pass by House Bill 325 and move to House, oh no, sorry. I do want 325. 326 is the one we're going to pass by. And actually, since the end, it's not a problem. House Bill 325, presented by Delegate Wims, another great Ways and Means Committee member, is a bill that would require that students, the State Department of Labor, to allow individuals to take all components of a GED test in the same language. Right now, the way the sponsor told me his intent and the intent of his co-sponsor was to have it for now being offered in English and Spanish. We toyed with the idea of adding other languages, but this is the year of the fiscal note, and adding that in would probably make the fiscal note prohibitive at this point. So we have to be super responsive to how much money we're spending. So it does need also a technical change. The language was a little muddy, is the word I would use here. And so we will be offering the amendment again. It will, that was the original intent, and the amendment would clarify that was the intent. And so without objection, I think since the amendment doesn't change anything about the bill, I would be happy to take a motion on the bill with clarifying amendment or discussion.
I move favorable that we do that.
Thank you, Delegate Patterson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Delegate Fair. I saw you two, Delegate Wilkins, raise your hand there. So thank you. If there's no further discussion on the bill, all in favor of the bill with the technical amendment, raise your hands, please. Thank you. And that carries. Okay, the last thing I want to do is I want to just have a minute or two to discuss something that comes before us every year. And it'll probably not come before us, but we'll hear bills. There's lots of bills to create curricular requirements and to create curriculum in schools. Generally, even though I was a teacher and I think I'm the smartest educator in the world, we have a State Department of Education that really can deal with what requirements are. There are no requirements for graduation in law, save one, which is one the Senate passed before we all got here, which was that every student has to take math every year. They don't have to get 4 credits or 5 credits, but they have to take math every single year, which is, I will tell you from personal experience, was ill-considered because we had kids who had finished 3 math credits. They didn't really like math. They want to take another course, and they would sit in the class and fail it. They didn't care. They would just sit there. So it really didn't accomplish the goal. If they wanted to add a 4th credit, we could have. But the graduation requirements are written in COMAR, not in code. And so we're very careful about requiring things like this. Now, the sponsor came with a clever idea to add to consider giving some service hours for being in a class. Talking with some of the leadership in Ways and Means, there was some concern that this was not a very good direction to go because you take classes, and you do service to do service. So I have sent you also, because this is a push every year, I wanted you all to see how thorough the offering of financial literacy is across the state currently. And relevant to Delegate Miller's statement about the other thing getting in the way, if we pass something, it could supplant or confuse or conflict with what a county is currently doing that probably is working. So I'm really feeling we need to put this bill away for now. I don't really feel like there's anything productive we can do, but I wanted to have two discussions about that. And if anybody wanted to talk about this clever idea of offering hours of service for taking classes, I think it's done cleverly in a few places. And Delegate Miller and I had a conversation walking up the steps. So I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in. We're not going to vote on this bill, but if you'd like to weigh in and have 5 or 10 minute discussion on this, I'd be happy to do that. Oh, Delegate Wilkins, there you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Eversole. I'm glad that we're having this conversation because this really has been a bill and an issue that's been percolating for a long time in our committee. And looking at what you sent around requirements for financial literacy, it looks like it looks like most jurisdictions do have some kind of integration in a course. It's hard for us to tell if that's really meaningful in terms of preparing students in terms of their finances and adulting. And that in a lot of places it does, well, not a lot of places, a few places it's a graduation requirement. The graduation requirement piece, I think that's where it seems like a lot of jurisdictions are lacking. It looks like there's 7 or 8 that do require it for graduation. So to me, it's two things. It's the quality of what exactly they are learning, and is that sufficient for the places where it's integrated? And the fact that only 7 of our jurisdictions require some type of coursework in financial literacy. So I just wanted to offer that. I am interested in us addressing this issue in a more meaningful way. And I think it would be helpful for maybe for the school systems to share a little bit more about what they do and how they do it. And for those who oppose any sort of path forward. That doesn't take up too much time.
No, it was good. Anybody else want to add to that or make their own comment at this point? Yeah, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we do need to have a bigger conversation on what it looks like, just because of how many times we do get this and we get different forms of it coming up. I will say from my own experience and my experience on the Board of Ed, a lot of the things that are embedded in the curriculum just are at places where they might not realize that they're getting the material. And so students that do take a comprehensive class about this tend to be better off, but they take it sometimes if they take it too early in their career, they might not realize the impact versus if they were taking it later in their high school career, which is what this course would be. So I am definitely in favor of kind of having an overall look at the financial literacy aspect, just because it is a concern that we hear from the community and from, after students have graduated, we hear it all the time.
Right. And you should know that, we're very judicious about that. I mean, we had a bill last year to introduce water safety courses. Wow, water safety is important, but where do we get off that? I don't want to say it because it's where do we stop that ball rolling? So, but it is one that people feel is a valuable thing, and it comes up repeatedly. So I wanted to put it in front of us. Delegate Fair.
Thank you so much. It's more of a question. I was looking through the research that your office sent over, and for the counties that do not have it integrated into their course requirements for graduation, however, they do have a graduation requirement for a credit. Is there a list of what it is that they're providing? Is it a personal financial literacy class that they're providing specifically that has that 1 or 1.5 credit attached to it?
My guess is not in law anyway. Maybe in Comar, but we've asked this question, and we haven't been able to get an answer. I still wanted to have the discussion, but one of the places that we wanted to ask is, because I saw it's taught in social studies classes. People have said you should teach it in math class as well. I'm a math teacher, and I don't know if I'd be very good at teaching financial literacy. And so we've asked, and we're going to PSTEB too, or PSTEB. People call it 2 different things. Which is, for those who don't know, is a Professional Standards of Teaching Education Board. teacher and I don't know what the E is for. Got to be education. But I want to know if there's any sort of accreditation or any sort of certification just generally that people get who are teaching it. Because, sometimes you just default. Like if you have a course in the school, somebody said, well, Ebersol's got a free period and we need to fill it. So let's let him teach it, and they may not be picking judiciously in those cases. So that concerns me that we would move to having it taught and relevant to Delegate Wilkins' question and Delegate Miller's, who's teaching it and how are they teaching it? So these are things we need to wrap our head around. I encourage you all to advocate, with State Department a little bit and ask them. Down the road, someday we may make them just establish some standards for it that should be adopted. We'll see. But for now, I think at least it's being addressed. I don't know. The advocates would often led me to feeling like it was just nobody was doing anything. And then I talked to a social studies teacher I know in Howard County. He says, no, we teach it every year. We have a whole unit. So a whole unit, is that enough? Is a year enough? That's stuff we need to start thinking about, I think. I do think that our approach should be to try to just encourage rather than start to hand out service hours for taking classes. That's, I think, a bad precedent for us to set. That's my opinion on that. So anybody else with any commentary? We're not going to vote. We're just having a discussion. And feel free to come to me or talk amongst yourselves offline about this as well if you want to just, come up with some ideas. All right, then. We're moving 3 bills to committee. They'll probably be on voting on Thursday. Alistair, nod your head. Yeah, good. And so we'll be seeing those soon. And I thank you all for the discussion. And I'll see you